You've got your analysis, you've got your number, but your dashboard still look a little flat, like they're doing the job, but it is missing the wow factor. Then it's time for a change. What if I told you there is a simple trick to make your dashboard feel alive? Today, we'll be going beyond basic chart and giving your dashboard a voice using dynamic images that update like magic. It's time to stop building charts that whisper and start creating stunning visuals that speak for themselves. Let's make your data impossible to ignore. Hello everyone, my name is Lin. I'm a senior data analyst and your go-to expert when it comes to data and automation. I've spent years helping business turning raw data into actionable insight and making data-driven decisions. And now I'm sharing those tools and techniques with you. If you're ready to dive into the world of data and level up your Excel skill like a pro, then make sure to hit that subscribe button. This video is a part of a data analytics series where we're helping Excel property, a growing property chain, turning messy timesheet data into visual that speak volume. In the previous episode, we've explored different types of visual for different purposes, starting with the simple objects and charts. Then we move on to more advanced visual like the waterfall chart and the gauge chart. We even dive into KPI visual and heat map inside the pivot table. In today's video, we're introducing a more powerful way to work with images and objects in Excel, including how to dynamically bring images from external source to Excel and creating dynamic embedded image in Excel, where images change instantly when the user interacts with the visual. Before we start, don't forget to grab the data file. There's a link in the description box waiting for you. You will also find a chapter marker to help you jump between the sections when needed. Feel free to pause, rewind, and take your time to follow along. And if you haven't seen any of the previous episodes, I've included the link here so you can catch up with the full series and then jump back right here. Ready to make your visual speak? Let's dive into it. Up to this point, we focus on a high-level analysis. We then compare the planned versus actual performance by highlighting issues across different stores. But identifying a problem at a high level isn't enough. Now it's time to zoom into the details and identify the top offenders for each key matrix. This level of insight is incredibly valuable for store managers. It gives them the information they need to take targeted action. Now, let's look at our current pivot table. We have here the information of employees ID, the store ID, and order variance matrix in percentage and absolute value. And we only display the top 3 offenders. So basically, we've already know which employees ID and the store IDs are showing the biggest gap. But let's be honest, that is not very helpful for the average end user. It is very hard to take action when you're staring at the raw code. So we need to create a much more user-friendly layout to display this information. We want to show the key details like the employee's name and name of the store where they're working at. We then show the variance, in other words, the performance matrix in both percentage and absolute value. This way, when a manager opens the dashboard, they immediately see who needs more attention and why. So no more extra diggings required. Alright, let's look at the pivot table. What we're missing here is the employee's name and the store name. So let's add those informations in. Type the word name in the search bar. Now add the employee's name and the store name in the row area. Alright, now we have all the information we wanted. But it is not displayed in the ideal format for visualization. All our matrix are displayed vertically in column format. What we want is to have the figure displayed horizontally in the row format. So let me show you a quick fix. First, I'm gonna drag all the dimension from the row area to the column area. Now you see the pivot table has changed the shape to display the information vertically. So we're pretty close to what we want. Second, I'm gonna drag the value items from the column area to the row area. And the pivot table structure flip the layout, displaying the information in the format just like we wanted. This new format is much easier to scan and it gives us more flexibility when we build our visual component later on. And one last thing, we're showing the information of top 3 offenders, so it don't make sense to show the grand total here. So let's remove it. So click on the pivot table, go to Design, in Grand Total, choose Off for Row and Column. Alright, now that we've got the pivot table display the information in the right format, and the structure is in line with what we wanted to see. So let's bring that data over and display the information in a much more user-friendly way using Excel formula. Let's start by selecting the area you want to display the information. Now type in equal and simply click on the corresponding cells in the pivot table. Now click Ctrl Enter to apply the formula to the entire selection. And just like that, we pull all the information that we need to this visual area right here. Now quickly format this in percentage, so click Ctrl Shift 5 on your keyboard. Alright, now let's test how this information behave when there's a filter applied. So go to General. Now filter using the store name. As you can see here, Boba Bloom has taken all of her holiday as expected. And that means she's not actually an offender and we don't want her to show up on this list. So let's remove it. Right now again, select the entire area. Now click F2 so that you can write the formula in the cell. And we want to apply the if condition. We want if the absolute value is less than or equal to 0. What we want is to return a blank. If not, then we return the intended value. Now I'm just going to make sure that the if condition is locked to the correct row. So I'm going to put the $sign in front of the row right here. Now hit Ctrl Enter to apply the new formula across the selection area. And that's look very good. Now you can see that Boba Bloom is no longer being displayed in the offender lists. The visual is now cleaner and only highlight the employees who require attention. Now for the variance rate, let's make it clearer by adding the label directly in front of the figure. This will help the user instantly understand what the number means. I'm gonna write our formula in a separate cell to test it out. Click F2 to write the formula in a cell. Now type in equal, open the bracket, and type in rates. Now we're going to use the ampersand to connect the text string with the number. And hit enter. As you can see, Excel returned the raw decimal from the calculation, and this is not very readable. We want to display the percentage format with no decimal. So to fix this, we're gonna need to wrap the number part inside the text formula. And then with the format text, I'm gonna use 0%. This is the syntax to display percentage with 0 decimal. Alright, now hit enter, and it's pretty close to what we want. Now we need to insert some space between the text and the number so that they don't look squished together. And we're going to use the ref function. Click ampersand to connect between the three parts of the formula. All right, now for the ref function, what it does is if you start with an input, let's say A, and you put here the number of times you want to repeat the character. Let's say I'm putting here 2 and hit enter. What you can see is that it's repeat the A 2 times. And if I put here 5 times, you can see that the A is repeated 5 times. All right. What we want here is not A, but we want a space. And we want this to be repeated 15 times. Now hit enter. Much better. You can clearly see the gap between the label and the number. All right. Now let's copy this formula to our original one. So I'm going to copy this and go back to our original formula. Now replace this last part with the new formula and hit enter. For the variance units, I'm going to click Ctrl D to copy the formula from above. But this time, I'm going to change it into the correct unit, which is the days. And for the format, we don't want to display this as percentage, but we want to display as an integer. So the code would be 0. Now hit enter, and we have the right format. Now select the entire area. On your keyboard, click Ctrl R to copy the formula to the right. All right, looks pretty good. I'm just going to quickly unfilter and go back to the formula. That's good. As you can see, we have a clear and readable labels for both variance matrix. All right, now we need to make sure that the information is sorted properly so that it's easier for the end user to interpret the number. So for example, for Jerry Javis, we want this to be displayed on the first position because the rate is 67% and is much far off from the 95% target of the holiday rates. Now, we do not want to touch the visual area, so we're going to perform the sort directly in the pivot table. So click on the filter icon. Now go to More Sort options. Now we want to sort from the smallest to the largest rates, so we're gonna choose Sort Ascending, and we're gonna sort it by the holiday rate. Now hit OK. And our visual is sorted properly. We don't need this test area anymore, so let's remove it. All right, so far we've been working mostly with number and texts. And while those are essential, they don't always make your dashboard feel human. Now imagine that you're a store manager. Wouldn't it be easier if instead of just seeing name or ID, you could actually see the face of the employees? And that's why in the next section, we're going to make our visual more alive with profile pictures. Excel Property Management team has provided us with some extra data, a table that's contained employees' ID information along with the profile picture URL. These URLs are linked to these images that are hosted externally, and our goal is to bring them directly into our dashboard. And we're not just talking about importing static images. We're building a setup that allowing the images to change dynamically based on the user selection. Now, there are many ways to approach this, but today I'm going to show you an elegant and advanced way to tackle this challenge. The first step is to import the source of the profile picture, which is the table that contains the URL information. So go to Data, Get Data, From File, and from an Excel workbook. Now select the source files and click Import. PowerQuery reads through the content of the files and lists it right here. And the table that we wanted is the profile table. So click on it and you can see here the content of the table. Now click Transform Data. That would take us to the Power Query editor. I'm going to quickly rename this query to profile. Now, what we need to do is to find a way to link each profile picture URL to the corresponding employees in the employees table. Let's pause here for a second and think. If you're going to do this in Excel, how would you approach it? You will probably load both tables into the worksheet and then use the VLOOKUP to pull the URL information to the employees table, right? That's a good thinking, but we can do it better. With Power Query, we don't need to load anything physically into the sheet. Instead, we will use a more efficient method, merge query, which works just like VLOOKUP, but it is much faster and cleaner. Here's how to use merge query. So go to the employees query. Now click on merge query. A merge window pop-up will appear. Think of this as a Power Query version of a VLOOKUP. This pop-up will allow you to join two tables based on a common column. First is the employees table. This is your main table, the one that you wanted to keep and enrich. The next step is to select the lookup table, and that is the profile table. Next, we need to identify the common column between the two tables, and that is the employee's ID column. And finally, the join kind, and there are many of them, and each serve a different purpose. I won't go too much into details here, but let me know in the comment if you want me to create a separate videos for this topic. Now, the most common join is the left outer join. Similar to VLOOKUP, it keeps everything from the main table and gets all possible matching values from the lookup table. And this is perfect to solve our problem. Click OK to execute the merge query. Now, as you can see, Power Query adds a new column that holds all the match rows from the profile table. Let's take a closer look. If you click on the blank space next to the word table, you'll see that for each employee, Power Query has successfully pulled in the corresponding URL. Next, let's extract this URL information. So click on the double arrow icon at the top right of the column. This will give you the list of all the components, and I only want to display the profile picture URL. And now hit OK. And just like that, we've successfully merged the URL data into the employees table. This gives us a clean setup where each employee now has their profile picture URL directly attached. It is perfect for dynamic visualization in the next step. Alright, now let's load everything to our data model. So go to Closer Loads, Closer Load To. And we only want to load the new table as a connection. Now, back to our pivot table. If you open the employees table in the pivot table field list, you'll see that our new column, the profile picture URL, has been added. At this point, you might be tempted to drag and drop this column directly into the column dimension. And yes, it does show that the correct URL has been added based on the filter context. But here's the problem. Once we insert the URL into the columns area, it added a new line in between the names and the variants. And that shifts the layout of the entire pivot table, which breaks our existing formula that are referencing to the pivot table. And we definitely don't want to spend time fixing all of that manually. So what is the faster way? Well, instead of using the URL column as a dimension, we'll display it as a measure, which can be added beneath the variant measures to avoid a structure shift. Alright, let's add our new measure into the employees table. I'm going to call this measure URL. Now here's the question. What DAX functions return a single value based on the current filter context? Well, we've covered this in the previous videos. It's the combination of has one value and values wrapped inside the if condition to avoid unwanted error. Now, for the has one value, we want to check if there is indeed only one employee's ID. And if this condition is true, we want to return the unique URL value. And that is our DAX formula. There's no need for formattings because we will be returning a string value. Hit OK. Now scroll down a little bit, and here you see our URL measures right here. Now let's drag and drop the new measure to the value area. Now quickly check if our URL measure returns the exact same value as shown in the URL column dimension. Now hit Ctrl Enter to apply the formula to the selected range. Perfect! Everything returned as true, meaning that the results are identical. Now that we have the URL measure, we don't need the column dimension anymore. So let's kick it out. And the formula worked perfectly, just like before. Alright, now for the final step, we're going to bring the profile picture to life. I'm going to quickly copy the formula from here, so we have all our if condition intact. Now, based on the displayed URL, we will pull the image from the host website and place it in Excel. And we have just the perfect function for this job. It's the image function. Now close the bracket and hit enter to activate the formula. Perfect! Excel has successfully pulled the image to the worksheet. It is quite small right now, so I'm going to enlarge the image with this trick. Select the cell with the image and the fill cell below it to make a square. Now go to Home, click Merge. And just like that, the image expands to fit the full area. It is much easier to see. Now let's fill in the rest of the employee's picture. Select the full range where you want the formula to be replicated. On your keyboard, click Ctrl R to copy everything from left to right. Alright, now that we have all the information we want to display, it's time for some final cosmetic adjustment to make our visual more noticeable. For the text part, I'm going to draw attention to the employee's name, so make it bold. For the store name, I'll make it smaller and align both text in the center. For the variance rate and the units, I'm going to make it a little bit smaller, and I will also increase the indentation 4 times. Let's also put some color in so that everything looks like one united visual. I'm gonna go with the standard color. Also, change the text to white so that it stands out with a new background color. Now I'm going to create a segregation between the name and the variance rate. So select the store name. On your keyboard, click Ctrl 1 to activate the Format Cells panel. In border, choose the thin borderline and choose the color as white. Now apply the border as the bottom of the cells and hit OK. Alright, now I'm going to make a thick border between the different profiles. So select the profile in the middle. Again, click Ctrl 1 to activate the formatting panel. I'm going to choose this thick line and color is white. And I'm going to apply the border on the left and on the right of the column. Now hit OK. Much better. Now for the profile picture, let's do something different. Instead of using a plain color, let's add some more effect to the picture. Select all the profile picture click Control 1. In Fill, choose Fill Effect. Now we're going to apply the gradient fill. I'm gonna go with the horizontal, and this style is good, so click OK. Perfect. Our visual looks really professional and stand out. Let's test this out. I'm going to apply a filter from the store slicer. As you can see, with the new background, the third block is clearly empty, which doesn't look professional. So we need to apply dynamic formatting to fix the issue. And we will be using conditional formatting to do the job. So select the area you want to apply the conditional formatting. Now go to Home, Conditional Formatting, New Rule. A conditional formatting pop-up appear, and we will be using formula to determine our condition. Now let's type in our formula. Equal if and open the bracket. Now what is our condition? If the result is blank, we want to apply the format, so we want to return true. Otherwise, return false and no formatting will be applied. Now we want the formula to be applied across all the selection cells, so I'm going to remove the dollar sign. Next, we want to determine the format we want to apply if our formula returns true. So click on Formats. In Fill, choose No Color. And in Border, choose None. So that means there will be no background and no borders applied when the condition is true. Alright, now hit OK, and we're good to go. And as you can see, our visual return empty where there is no result. I'm gonna try to unfilter everything, and our visual works perfectly. And just like that, our dashboard goes from functional to visually engaging with dynamic images that respond to changes in the data. Now I'm going to apply the same methodology to order measures. The first step is to prepare our pivot table to display our data in a nice and clean way. That includes reformat the pivot table layouts from row to column, remove the grand total information, add in the profile picture URL measure, and sort by the variance rates to keep everything in order. Once we have our data ready, simply replicate the visual area with the existing one. Now paste it 2 lines below to make sure that all the formula reference the correct cells in the pivot table. Now change the format for the variance rate. We want the percentage format with 1 decimal. So the code would be 0.0%. And we're done. Now for the compliance rate, I'm gonna use the visual calculation from the holiday rates. Copy and paste. That's look good. There's nothing to be changed here. And finally, the overtime rate. I'm gonna use the visual calculation from the absent rate. The variance rate format is good. Now for the variance unit, we want this in minutes, and we want to display 2 decimal. So the code would be 0.00. Alright, now if you noticed, our condition formula are still linked to row 23, which is the condition for the first visual. This is not correct. We want the formula to link to the actual figures of the corresponding row. So we would need to update the formula to reflect the correct information. And of course, we will not be doing this manually. Let me show you another trick. Select the entire calculation area to restrict the search range. Now on your keyboard, click Ctrl-H to activate the Find and Replace window. Now what we want to find is the text $23 within the formulas. And we will be replacing this with the correct rows. And we have all our formula updated in one go. Now I'm going to repeat this to other visual area. And we've completed all our visuals. That's it for today's video. Throughout the series, you've learned how to visualize different types of information using the right visual, including basic objects and charts like KPI cards, bar charts, and donut charts. We then move on to more advanced visual like the waterfall chart and custom gauge charts. We also explore dynamic KPI and heat map within pivot table that respond to user input. And in today's video, you've discovered how to take your dashboard even further. We've explored how to dynamically work with images and objects to add a whole new level of interactivity and customization to our visual. Now that we've built all the essential visuals, it's time to bring everything together. In the next video, we will shift from building charts to telling the story, connecting everything into a complete dashboard that delivered insight at a glance. Let's wrap up our data visualization chapter and welcome to the world of data storytelling. That's a wrap up on today's video, and thank you for sticking with me. If you find this video helpful, please give it a thumbs up and share it with your friends or colleagues. Make sure to subscribe for more content that will help you to work smarter with data. Have a feedback? Leave it below. I always love to hear from you. See you next time.